Picanha always felt like that type of steak that you can't cook at home. But what if you did?
Today we're cooking picanha. It's probably one of the most slept on steaks for home cooks, and it's honestly a lot cheaper than you think. I'm going to show you how to portion and salt the steaks, as well as how to give it a beautiful crust. We're also making a Bordelaise pan sauce, and I might have chopped the tip of my pinky off in the process. But first, who am I? My name is Xander Mason and I love to cook. It's something I've been doing for years now and I want to inspire you to try out my recipes. Now without further delay, let's get to cooking. We're first going to need one picanha steak, around 2.5 pounds. Now most grocery stores don't sell picanha, so you'll need to go to a butcher for it. That being said, it's well worth the trip because as you'll see soon, it's so much cheaper this way. I'm going to trim off any excess fat or silver skin, and now I'm gonna portion my steaks. And it's important to note what direction the grain is going. You can see the grain here. It's those visible lines that run alongside each other with a few pockets of marbled fat. Now when you portion your steak, you want to slice with the grain or with those lines. Basically how I'm doing it right here. I'm going to be slicing about 1 inch to 1.25 inch portions. Now when we later cook and serve our steaks, we're going to be slicing it against the grain, which may not seem like a big deal, but trust me, it makes a significant difference when it comes to the tenderness of your steak. After portioning all my steaks, as you can see, we're left with about 5.5 pieces worth of steak. This whole picanha cost me 30 bucks, which means each of these pieces are 6 bucks. That is an amazing value for steaks. Now, after moving them to a wire rack, I'm gonna heavily salt them on both sides and the fat cap as well. I'm then gonna throw them into the fridge and allow them to dry brine overnight. The next day, or in my case, 2 days later, you can see all the salt has penetrated into the meat. It's also super dry and firmed up a lot, which gives us a steak with zero flop.
Zero flop.
I'm gonna brush off any excess salt that's on the fat cap, and I'm gonna throw the piece that will be later cooking back in the fridge. The rest I'll vacuum seal and use whenever I'm in the mood for some steaks. They'll basically keep for what feels like forever. Now before we can cook our steaks, I wanna prep all of our ingredients for our Bordelaise pan sauce. And I won't lie, this recipe comes from the GOAT himself, Brian Lagerstrom. That being said, you'll need 250 grams or 1 cup of dry red wine. I'm using a Merlot here. You'll also need 50 grams or half a stick of butter that's been cubed, and set a little extra butter to the side for later, and make sure your cubed butter remains refrigerated. From there, we'll need 42 grams of better than bouillon beef base. In Brian Lagerstrom's recipe, he uses demi-glace, which is way better, but it's hard to find in most grocery stores, so the easier option is just use better than bouillon beef base. I'm gonna crush 10 grams or 3 cloves of garlic, and I'll mince about 1 tablespoon of thyme. Try not to get too many stems in there, but don't stress because I know how frustrating working with thyme can be. Let it be known that I hate pulling thyme leaves. This stuff is not fun. It's boring and it's just annoying. I always get the stems every time. I'm also going to finely mince 50 grams worth of shallots, which is about 1 medium shallot, and that's it. We're ready to cook our steaks and make our pan sauce. To do so, I'm going to set my stainless steel pan to high heat. I'm also going to take out my steak from the fridge, and once my pan is ripping hot, I'm going to pour in some high smoke point oil, and I'm going to sear one side of my steak. Now, the way I'm cooking this steak is a little different than usual. First, I did not let my steak rest at room temp, which feels backwards, but I purposely left it in the fridge because I wanted to see how much of a difference, if at all any, this makes. The second thing I'm doing differently is I'm going to be flipping this steak every 30 seconds. I heard flipping every 30 seconds will not only give you a better crust on your steak, but it will also reduce the size of the gray band as well. And because this steak is cold and was not rested at room temperature, we're able to spend more time searing it, developing a proper crust before reaching that medium rare internal temperature. Now let's see how this actually plays out. 4 flips in, and as you can see, the crust is already looking really nice. But if we check the internal temperature, it's not even close to that 125-degree medium rare range. 3 to 4 flips later, and now we've hit that perfect 125 degrees. Not only that, the crust is absolutely phenomenal. Now, I also did make an attempt to try and render out the fat cap, but it curled up too much and I didn't want to further raise that internal temperature. It's already going to raise a few more degrees by itself, so I just didn't worry about it. I'm going to move our steak onto a wire rack to rest, and now it's time to work on our pan sauce. I'll set the heat to medium and with a paper towel soak up any excess oil in our pan. From there, I'm going to throw in both our shallots and garlic, as well as a knob of that extra butter I told you to set aside. I'm going to cook for a couple minutes until our shallots and garlic just barely start to brown. From there, I'll pour in all of our wine and our beef base as well. After mixing everything together, I want you to take a look at the consistency of our liquid.
That's not thick enough.
I'm going to turn my burner to high, and I'm going to continue to reduce this liquid until we get to our desired thickness. I'll also throw in our thyme as well as a few cranks of black pepper. After about 3 to 6 minutes worth of reducing, as you can see, our sauce has thickened a lot. And here's the before and after so you can better see the differences in the consistency. Now to finish this sauce, I'm going to cut the heat and throw in our cold cubed butter, mixing until it's fully combined and glossy. Now that's it. You have an amazing Bordelaise pan sauce, and I'm going to make sure to taste it to adjust the flavors, but spoiler alert, it was amazing.
Ooh, yeah. Wow, that just punches you with flavor. That's gonna pair so nice with the steak. Holy cow. Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. Holy cow.
Shout out again to Brian Lagerstrom for this banger of a pan sauce. Now it's time to plate our meal. I'm gonna pour some of our sauce into a little sauce dish, and I'll store the rest for later. I'm then gonna grab our steaks and then give it thin diagonal cuts against the grain. Again, this will give us maximum tenderness when we bite into it later. And now let's also take a peek under the hood to see how we cooked it. Now, if I'm being honest, that's a phenomenal looking slice of meat. I would say that is perfectly cooked, and the gray band is honestly very minimal. I'm gonna move my steaks onto a plate along with our sauce, and I'm gonna optionally chop a little bit of parsley for garnish. And this is when I made a massive mistake. You see, I was moving a little too quickly, and I didn't realize my pinky finger was sliding over and under the top of my knife. I then pressed my knife down into my pinky finger, but thankfully I got super lucky because the blade of the knife caught my nail and not my skin. I'm not gonna lie, I dodged a massive bullet here, and it's a reminder to always be careful and don't rush yourself in the kitchen, especially as a home cook. But either way, I'm gonna grab our plate and then drizzle a little bit of our pan sauce over our steaks. I'll then sprinkle some of our parsley that almost cost me a finger, and that's it. You have a beautiful picanha steak dinner paired with an insane Bordelaise pan sauce that'll knock your socks off. All that's left to do is give this sucker a taste.
Okay, so I nearly lost a pinky in the process, but thank God I didn't. We have a beautiful steak here. We're just gonna go straight in. Wow, 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 wow. Let me just say, that is an experience. Oh my Lord. The crust here is actually phenomenal. I think it's my new favorite way to cook steaks. On high heat, flip it every 30 seconds. Keep the steak refrigerated so that way you get a better crust while maintaining a good internal temp. Oh my Lord. This is so good. That is actually insane.
And there you have it. I hope you guys give this recipe a shot at home. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. If you want to see last week's video where we cooked the Duolingo bird, link is right here. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of your day.